morning. So this story is a little bit different from what you're used to. This is kind of my personal story of the last 5 years. I retired from Devopsdays conference 5 years ago, and then I thought, like, okay, what am I going to do next? And a company called out a startup to help them. And this talk is about my journey, about busting silos and making new friends. So I joined the company because they needed to help on their scalability issues. So I came in on the tech side, and I figured out, like, we've been talking about DevOps for 5 years, so I got this, right? I stayed there for a while. I solved the first scalability problem. But what was very interesting for me is that even though I knew what to do, and we were only a small team, it took me like 1 year to convince the others that we needed testing. Like 1 year, even at that scale. That was like mind-blowing for me. We went from Git checkout on production servers to doing deploys in real time during live shows on television. So we got it. After 1 year, it was so improving that I figured, like, we did enough on the DevOps side, what we say. The pipeline was there, the people were collaborating, and I started just looking, where's my next bottleneck in the company to help them with? Because in a way, I was feeling that I was being redundant, and I was helping them in a way that they could be going for a long time. So what turned out is that as a small company, you really want to focus on what you think is important on your domain. In our case, doing live shows and interactivity. But we didn't want to build everything ourselves. Even though I could have built the best monitoring service ever, the best deployment service ever, the best anything ever, we decided not to go that route and just use good services that we will be depending on. The same with other services for mobile use, so not just the cloud or EC2, anything, live streaming, mobile services, analytics, that was not our core, so we started using services. After about a year and a half, it was really strange for me because I was working with so many kind of services, and I said to myself, hey, we're doing DevOps and collaboration, and I don't really need to talk to these people that I'm using services of. Is this kind of where we are heading with DevOps? Like once we got the collaboration, once we got the pipeline, that it's done and we just need the API to talk to each other? I learned that the communication in a supplier way for a service works actually different. I was looking for the information, the documentation, so that was clearly communication by the supplier. I went to many conferences and talked to the supplier engineers. I got on Slack. I got a habit of sending any new service that I used feedback in a gist to make them helpful, to make them report my things. So many times I got like so positive feedback of them saying it's so hard to get feedback, honest feedback. I will use this to tell it to my manager that we have that problem. I've been saying it for years, but it's really helpful that somebody's now reporting the same issues. Some services went even further. They were exposing their internal errors of the service to us directly. Something that's rarely done, but is really useful when you depend on them as a supplier. I've said it before, a lot of people think it's about serverless. I think it's about serviceful, using a lot of services. And those services, in a way, they have become my new friends. We got the tech covered, we got the friends covered, and then we said, like, okay, we have been doing projects, And now we have this kind of cool proof of concept to work on. Uh, why don't we just become a product company? I can tell you, again, a great learning opportunity. Um, how to switch from that, the mindset was totally different. But what I realized is that I had become friends with marketing, something I've never done really before. And what was just very interesting is that I learned they have like the best metrics, the best monitoring, the best A/B testing in the world. And it is because they actually invented it before there was any tech to be able to test stuff, to be able to see what was happening. So I learned a lot from them, and I tried to contribute back. And the way I did it is that I started writing blog posts and articles for the marketing to be sure that they were useful for our customers who wanted to have more technical side. And we were ranked somehow in the top SEO because of that, because so many vendors were pointing at us, our friends, that we are described how we were working with them. Marketing is also your biggest fan, which is strange as a technology, but every time you have a new feature, they will be cheering so hard because they will have something to talk about and to share to the world. Again, they became my new friends. And the bottleneck of marketing, after a while, when we had a new person working on it, was really solved. So the next bottleneck was HR. And HR, finding new people when you're a small company, when everybody's out there, has way more cool stuff to do, that's really hard. We had to learn that in the beginning, we just put keywords of things that people would be interested in. After a while, we just switched that to, you don't need to know any of the technologies. You just have to prove that you have an interest, that you want to work with us, that you're willing to learn. And that really changed our way that we got new candidates. In the beginning also, we would do just the selection with a few people. After a while, we switched to them, inviting them to the company, and having them work with us for a while to know whether we were compatible, whether they were getting value and we were getting value. But the thing that I learned most is that HR, you cannot break the SLA of not paying your employees. It was not automated in the beginning, and we automated that. So the next one of my friends was sales. Well, it wasn't like a real friendly relation in the beginning. Oh, we need to sell this. Can you make this? How fast can you make this? We need this feature. So the pressure that you will feel normally in a project from your project manager, the sales have that too. But I realized they were having an enormous pressure from a customer. So they are under the same pressure as we are. They have to be, almost read the impossible from other people, what they want, because they might say different things. I learned that pricing is so incredibly hard that it's probably like a scientific problem, but it never is looked like that. And we learned also that pricing, once you set it, is like one of the hardest legacies to change in your company when you go out. We also learned that the speed that we were thinking of in deployment was speed that was needed in sales. When you got a customer that has an interest, whether it's on the website or anywhere on a conference, you have to respond as fast as possible because that's the heat, that's the time that the customer is thinking about it. We extended that feedback loop for going faster of trying to onboard our customers as fast as possible on our Slack channel and giving them feedback, giving them the feeling of trust that maybe we're not the biggest company, but at least we were open, we were willing to share, and we were willing to help them and take ownership if things go wrong. The nice thing is that I realized that after a while, sales is very useful in a way that they pressure us to make things simpler. They would say it makes things cheaper, But on an architecture-wise, it often makes you think about simpler solutions. We tended to over-architect the things we do as a technology. So again, they really became my friends, and that bottleneck kind of got going on the sales. The next group is legal, and legal is very strange. And I learned they are actually like ops. Like nobody sees them unless there's an issue. And we had this big, I'm certain a lot of people have had that problem of, having GDPR implemented, and you look at all the rules and it's not clear, and you feel the pressure on, you need to be secure. But I can tell you, once you have to put your signature under a contract that says we are secure, we are compliant, it may you revisit all the technology, all the architecture to see you're safe. Anything that was lying around. So I would say, even though they're sometimes seen as the people who kind of, have no impact or that they are on the side, the legal has a very well impact that it improves your security into a way that you really earn it. So the fact by signing it made you committed that you are doing the most secure and the most privacy-like thing for your customers. So I learned they're very awesome because they're also very analytical. Like if you write a contract, like every word is defined. You try to redefine what you need and what the customer wants. Maybe they're not like very used to any of the technology, but that's part of your job to help them. But if anything happens, like the service crash or you lose data, that's the thing you want to rely on. So that's how I learned they are friends, not very visible, but friends you need to keep dear to your heart. So the last silo was finance. It sounds a bit strange, like we would probably have to look way better at like money coming in, money going out, but you kind of tend to go into a flow of people, talking to people, working for the people. But I would say finance is like testers. If there's no money in the bank, the test has failed. If there's enough money in the bank, that means you're doing a good thing. So they're might be, again, somewhere in the shadow, but having them work on things like cash flow and making sure there's enough money to pay the people, to pay anything that you dream of on technology-wise, they are an enabler that you might not think of that makes you be able to do your job that you really like. In the end, and this is the end, we all worked hard and we decided to stop our company because there's one thing we couldn't achieve, and that was the customer buying enough of our product so we could sustain it. We did everything that we could. We worked really hard, but the customer is always right in that perspective. A lot of people would say, oh, that's sad, you have to stop your company, but oh boy, you cannot imagine the learning I did and the friends I made in the process. So there is definitely not any issue, and we're still proud of what we did. So as a summary, I would say, in our case, DevOps was not the bottleneck. In a way, we really didn't have to worry about it anymore. And there were a lot of other pieces that were needed for us to succeed as a company. And I know, in this type of conferences, a lot of people would focus on, yes, Dev and Ops, but the pipeline is way bigger. From marketing, through sales, through Dev and Ops, through the finance, and everywhere else. So I want to take this opportunity from this talk to have an idea that wherever you are, you're in this tiny part, and don't overestimate your power or estimate your value within the company. Any other part in the company is valuable to make it succeed. Last remark, you would say, why horses? Because by now I know unicorns don't exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patrick.